welcome to The Explainer. So glad you're hanging out with us today because, wow, we are zeroing in on something incredibly focused and honestly, deeply fascinating. We're unpacking a single, powerfully sobering premise from a guide on mastering your finances. Now, when you hear a title like that, you probably expect a standard, step-by-step tutorial, right? But the source material hits us with something so fundamental, so completely unvarnished right out of the gate that it absolutely demands its own deep dive. We're going to look closely at the exact words used to set the stage for financial mastery, and trust me, it is not the typical motivational sunshine you might expect. We're kicking things off with this truly paradoxical hook. On one hand, you've got this optimistic, empowering promise of mastering your money, getting a comprehensive guide, and finally taking control. But then, in stark contrast, the very first concept introduced is the systemic reality that the rich get richer and the poor get poorer. So how in the world do we reconcile these two ideas? How can a comprehensive guide to taking control of your personal wealth start by pointing out a system that seems to operate entirely on its own, favoring people who already have a massive head start? Well, that tension right there is exactly what makes this source material so compelling.
Section 1. The Promise of Mastery. Look, when anyone seeks out a comprehensive guide to money management, they're usually hunting for the spreadsheets, the investment strategies, the secret sauce to making a bank account grow. You totally expect standard tips like cut back on coffee or start this rigid budget. Instead, the creator basically drops an anvil on that idealized promise with a massive reality check. Quote, "Have you heard the phrase, the rich keep getting richer and the poor are getting poorer? Well, it's not just a phrase. Unfortunately, it's the truth." Unquote. Take a second to just really absorb that. The source doesn't ease us into the deep end at all. Before handing over the tools to win the game, the creator insists on telling you that the game itself is fundamentally tilted.
Section 2. The Unfortunate Truth. Now, what is really fascinating here is the deliberate pivot in language. I mean, we all know what a phrase is, right? It's an idiom. It's that cynical saying you might mutter when you see a billionaire buy their third mega yacht. It's so easy to just brush off a phrase. But a truth? Okay, that is entirely different. By redefining this concept from a mere saying into an unavoidable systemic reality, the source material essentially forces us to treat it like a law of physics. It's like it implies that wealth accumulation acts a lot like gravity. Mass attracts mass, wealth attracts wealth. It's literally no longer just a casual observation. It becomes the foundational rule of the whole financial ecosystem. And this brilliantly illustrates the emotional core of the message, which is anchored by just one single word, unfortunately. Think about the sheer power of that specific word for a second. It perfectly captures the frustration of navigating this systemic momentum. The creator isn't some heartless economist coldly stating a fact, and they definitely aren't cheering the system on. No, that one word creates this immediate bond of empathy. It's a total acknowledgement that, yeah, this reality is harsh, it feels incredibly unfair, and it is a massive hurdle. We're starting from a place of shared grievance before we even think about getting to the solutions. Section 3. Beyond just a phrase. So where do we go from here? How do we actually process this pessimistic reality as a baseline for real money management? Once we move beyond seeing wealth inequality as just a saying and actually accept it as truth, what do we do with that information? Well, true mastery requires accepting these stark baseline conditions without any sugarcoating. First up, it means acknowledging the systemic truth of wealth distribution. We have to see the board exactly as it is, not as we wish it was. Second, it means deconstructing the mechanics of how capital yields more capital. And finally, we absolutely have to confront that inherent difficulty head-on. You simply cannot master a system if you're living in denial about its challenges. True financial mastery requires facing the ugly truth directly, so you can build a strategy that's actually robust enough to withstand it. Which brings us to the ultimate challenge posed by this source material. If the rich getting richer is the undeniable truth, how will you navigate this reality to master your finances? If you accept that the game is tough and that the momentum inherently favors the wealthy, how do you take this harsh reality and use it as your foundational step? Because it's not about giving up, right? It's about adequately preparing for the real climb. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. I really hope this deeply realistic perspective helps reframe your own approach to financial mastery. Keep learning, keep questioning, and I'll see you next time.